In the modern corporate world, the most valuable commodity on earth isn't oil, gold, or real estate. It's data. My name is Chloe. I am a principal cloud security architect. While the executives on the top floor of our corporate headquarters were busy popping champagne over record-breaking quarterly profits, I was the one sitting in the cold, windowless glow of the server control room, fighting a relentless, invisible war. I was the sole guardian of a multi-billion-dollar fortress of big data. Our company held the highly sensitive financial records, intellectual property, and personal data of millions of users. Every single day, automated botnets, state-sponsored hackers, and sophisticated ransomware syndicates aggressively tested our digital walls. And every single day, my custom encryption protocols, dynamic firewalls, and zero-trust architecture silently neutralized the threats before a single alarm could even ring on the CEO's desk. But there is a fatal flaw in the business of elite cybersecurity. When you do your job perfectly, it looks like you are doing absolutely nothing at all. The board of directors didn't understand the complex mathematics keeping their empire safe. They didn't see the thousands of catastrophic cyber attacks my infrastructure deflected while they were sleeping. They looked at my department's massive security budget and my specialized salary, and they didn't see an impenetrable necessary shield. They just saw a giant red number on a spreadsheet, an unnecessary expense. They arrogantly assumed that because the system had never been breached, the system didn't need its architect anymore. They forgot one brutal, unforgiving rule of the digital age. Security is not a product you can just buy and forget. It is a living, breathing process. And when they decided they could replace me with a cheap automated script and a junior manager, they didn't just fire their lead engineer. They unlocked the vault and handed the keys to the dark web. If you have ever been penalized for doing your job so flawlessly that management forgot how essential you actually are, keep watching. Welcome back to Scars and Silk. Hit that subscribe button right now, because today I am going to show you exactly how expensive a cost-cutting measure can truly be when the ransomware finally knocks on the door.
It all started with the acquisition. Our tech firm was swallowed whole by a massive, ruthless private equity group. The board brought in a new CEO. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus was not an engineer, and he certainly wasn't a tech visionary. He was a spreadsheet executioner. His singular mandate from the private equity board was to aggressively slash operational costs and artificially inflate the company's short-term EBITDA so they could eventually flip the company for a massive profit. When Marcus reviewed the company financials, his eyes immediately locked onto my department. He didn't understand the custom zero-trust architecture I had built, and he had no concept of the advanced threat-hunting algorithms that were silently keeping the company alive. To a man who only speaks in profit margins, an elite cybersecurity team doesn't look like a shield. It looks like a massive, bleeding cost center. He called me into his glass office on a Tuesday morning. He didn't ask a single question about our digital infrastructure, our threat landscape, or our redundancy protocols. He just pointed a designer pen at a spreadsheet. "Chloe," he said, using that patronizing corporate tone, "your department's budget is financially inefficient. Your custom security protocols are completely over-engineered for our current needs. We are a business, not the Pentagon." He then proudly announced his master plan to streamline operations. He was terminating my contract immediately. To replace my entire architecture, he was purchasing a cheap, off-the-shelf automated security software. And to manage this new, terrifyingly basic firewall, he was promoting a junior IT manager, a guy who barely knew how to reset a router, let alone defend against a coordinated cyber siege. He was firing his lead architect to save a fraction of a percent on his quarterly report. I looked at him, completely composed, and delivered a warning that he was too arrogant to understand. Security is not a static product you just install, Marcus. It is a constant, evolving process. I don't just run the software. I am the perimeter. If you remove the architect, the walls will inevitably fall.
He just smiled, thanked me for my contributions, and handed me my severance paperwork. He honestly believed he had outsmarted the system. He thought he had successfully cut the fat, but he didn't realize he had just severed the company's digital spinal cord.
Before I could even finish reading the severance package, the glass door to the office opened. Two massive corporate security guards walked in, flanked by the head of HR. Marcus wasn't just terminating my employment, he was executing a hostile takeover of my intellectual property. He slid a heavy legal document across the desk. It wasn't just a non-disclosure agreement, it was a complete surrender of my architecture. He demanded the master encryption keys, the root access credentials to the entire cloud infrastructure, and the proprietary threat intelligence protocols I had meticulously coded from scratch over the last 5 years. Everything you built on company time, on company servers, is our exclusive intellectual property, Chloe, Marcus said coldly, his eyes locked on his laptop screen. Hand over the administrative keys. Now. They didn't treat me like a dedicated lead architect who had protected their multi-billion-dollar data vault for years. Because I possessed the highest level of system clearance, they immediately treated me like a volatile insider threat. Before I even stood up from the chair, my phone buzzed. They had already remotely wiped my corporate devices and permanently revoked my biometric authentication to the server rooms. I was officially a ghost in the machine I had built. I didn't argue, I didn't yell, I calmly wrote down the master encryption phrases, handed over the physical security tokens, and signed the IP transfer. Marcus snatched the documents with a smug look of absolute triumph, handing the root access codes over to the terrified-looking junior IT manager who was standing quietly in the corner. As the guard stepped forward to publicly escort me out of the building like a criminal, I paused at the door. I looked back at Marcus, who was already analyzing his newly inflated profit spreadsheet. "You need to understand what you just did, Marcus," I said, my voice perfectly level, carrying through the silent office. "Security is not a product you can just buy and forget. It is a relentless, continuous process that requires a master architect to maintain. You think you just saved $1 million in payroll, but you didn't just buy a cheaper software. You just fired the only process keeping this entire empire from burning to the ground." He didn't even look up from his scream. He just waved me out. He had the keys to the kingdom, but he had absolutely no idea how to defend the castle.
For the first few weeks of my exile, I simply watched from the outside. I didn't leave a back door open. I didn't plant a logic bomb or a malicious script in their servers. That would be a felony, and frankly, I didn't need to. The brilliant, destructive truth of elite cloud infrastructure is that it possesses its own natural expiration date if left unattended. Marcus and his private equity board honestly thought they had purchased a static reinforced steel vault. But a custom zero-trust environment is a living ecosystem. It requires constant microscopic calibration. It requires aggressive daily security patching, continuous threat landscape analysis, and most importantly, the highly complex manual rotation of cryptographic keys. The cheap, off-the-shelf automated software they installed was the equivalent of putting a basic padlock on a nuclear facility. And the junior manager they promoted didn't even know how to read the raw diagnostic logs properly, let alone anticipate a zero-day exploit. I didn't have to sabotage them, I just had to wait for the infrastructure to naturally decay. It wasn't a matter of if the digital walls would crack, it was a mathematical certainty of when. I want to pause this story right here for a second. I am speaking directly to the women watching this who are the invisible load-bearing pillars of their companies, the ones who silently solve the catastrophic problems before the executives even know they exist, only to be told that your role is redundant or an unnecessary expense. Have you ever been tempted to just step back and let the glass shatter, just to show them exactly how heavy the sky actually was? Go down to the comments right now and drop a padlock or a shield to claim your space and your actual market value. Let the corporate suits know that we are absolutely done building fortresses for people who do not respect the architects. And make sure you hit that subscribe button to join the Scars and Silk network, because you need to see exactly what happens when the wolves finally find the crack in the wall. Back to the servers. While Marcus was busy showing off his newly slashed budget to the board of directors, my old firewalls were silently expiring.
And on the dark web, automated scanners are always watching.
While Marcus was busy patting himself on the back for optimizing the quarterly budget, I was busy registering my own independent cybersecurity consulting firm. I set up a heavily encrypted remote office, secured my own elite liability insurance, and simply watched the global threat intelligence feeds. Inside my old company, the decay happened exactly as I predicted. Without my daily calibration, the custom zero trust architecture began to slowly fracture. The cryptographic keys expired and defaulted to lower security tiers. The network segmentation protocols began to bleed into each other. And the junior IT manager, he was completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of raw data. When the cheap off-the-shelf automated software flagged a minor anomaly in an obscure server port, he didn't run a manual diagnostic. He just clicked dismiss to clear the annoying red notification from his dashboard. That single, lazy click was the equivalent of leaving the back door of the corporate vault wide open. It didn't take long. In the digital underworld, nothing stays hidden. A highly sophisticated, ruthless ransomware syndicate had been running automated botnets across the financial sector, scanning millions of IP addresses per second, hunting for microscopic vulnerabilities. On a quiet Thursday night, their scanners pinged Marcus's servers. They didn't hit an actively monitored dynamic firewall, they hit a decaying, unpatched entry point. They didn't smash through the front door. They quietly slipped through the digital cracks. For 3 days, the hackers moved laterally through the company's internal network, completely undetected by Marcus's budget security software. They methodically mapped the entire cloud infrastructure. They identified the core databases holding the most sensitive, multi-billion-dollar corporate intellectual property and user financial records. And then they silently deployed their malicious payload across every single server. They didn't just steal the data, they weaponized it, and they waited until the absolute worst possible moment for Marcus to pull the trigger.
The strike happened on a Monday morning, exactly 10 minutes before the opening bell of the stock exchange. Marcus was standing in the executive boardroom, preparing to present his newly optimized quarterly earnings to the private equity board. But before he could even project his spreadsheet, every single monitor in the building flickered, froze, and went violently black. A second later, the screens illuminated with a blood-red terminal window displaying a single terrifying message and a digital countdown clock. The ransomware syndicate hadn't just stolen the data, they had detonated a highly sophisticated zero-day exploit, deploying military-grade 256-bit encryption across the entire corporate network. In less than 45 seconds, $5 billion worth of proprietary intellectual property, user financial records, and core operational databases were mathematically locked inside an impenetrable digital vault. The hackers demanded an astronomical ransom, $15 million in untraceable cryptocurrency, payable within 48 hours. If the timer hit 0, they would permanently delete the decryption key and dump the raw, unencrypted data onto the dark web, triggering catastrophic regulatory fines and instantly bankrupting the company. The corporate headquarters descended into absolute chaos. Trading partners were entirely locked out. Internal communications were severed. As rumors of the catastrophic breach leaked onto financial news networks, the company's stock price immediately went into freefall, bleeding hundreds of millions of dollars in market cap by the minute. Marcus sprinted down to the server control room, his bespoke suit soaked in cold sweat. He burst through the security doors, expecting to see a coordinated, high-tech digital defense. Instead, he found his budget-friendly junior IT manager hyperventilating in the corner, staring helplessly at a wall of screaming red error logs. The cheap, off-the-shelf automated security software hadn't just failed to stop the attack, it was completely paralyzed, unable to even identify the malicious payload. Marcus screamed at the manager to immediately initiate the disaster recovery backup servers, only to receive a devastating, mathematically brutal answer. The hackers had already moved laterally through the unpatched network and encrypted the redundant backups too.
The cost-cutting CEO was completely locked out of his own empire. He had a $15 million gun to his head, a collapsing stock price, and absolutely no digital shield. He was finally realizing the true, catastrophic cost of firing the architect.
At exactly 2:15 p.m., my encrypted personal phone rang. It was Marcus. The arrogant, condescending corporate tone was completely gone. He sounded breathless, terrified, and utterly desperate. He didn't apologize. He just frantically begged me to come back to the office, to bypass the ransomware, to save the company's multi-billion-dollar infrastructure. He offered me my old job back with a modest retention bonus. I sat at my kitchen island, sipping my coffee, and let him finish his frantic pitch. "Marcus," I said, my voice ice cold and perfectly calm, "I don't work for you anymore. You made it very clear that my salary was an unnecessary operational expense. However, my independent cybersecurity firm does offer emergency ransomware mitigation services." I didn't give him a chance to negotiate. I dictated my terms. My emergency crisis intervention fee is $5 million. That is a non-negotiable flat-rate consulting retainer. It must be wired directly into my firm's corporate account, fully cleared, before I even open my laptop. And when I return to the building, I will have absolute, unquestioned root-level autonomy over the entire infrastructure. Marcus gasped. He accused me of corporate extortion. He screamed that $5 million was 10 times my original annual salary. "The hackers are asking for $50 million, Marcus," I replied, staring at my glowing monitors. "I'm offering you a 90% discount on your own incompetence. You have a ticking clock and a collapsing stock price. You can pay the architect to rebuild the walls, or you can explain to your private equity board why you let the entire castle burn down to save a fraction of a percent on a spreadsheet. You have 60 seconds to decide." The wire transfer cleared my account 14 minutes later. I didn't even drive to the office. Sitting in my apartment, I logged into their network. Because I was the original architect of the zero-trust environment, I knew the microscopic structural flaws of the legacy code. Flaws the automated ransomware didn't understand. I mathematically isolated their malicious payload, quarantined the compromised servers, and initiated a complex decryption bypass I had theorized months ago. In less than 2 hours, the screens at corporate headquarters turned from blood red back to corporate blue. The data was saved. The company survived. But Marcus was unceremoniously fired by the board of directors the very next morning for catastrophic negligence. To every brilliant woman in tech, engineering, and corporate infrastructure, you are the invisible shield holding their empires together. When the men in the C-suite look at your salary and mistake your flawless execution for an unnecessary expense, do not panic. Let them hand you your severance. Let them install their cheap replacements. And when the firewalls finally collapse, do not give them a discount on your genius. Charge them double to put the fire out. If this story reminded you of exactly how powerful you are, do not keep it to yourself. Send this video to a woman in your network who needs to remember her actual market value. Go down to the comments and drop a crown or a shield so I know the architects are taking back the control room. And hit that subscribe button to join the Scars and Silk Empire. Because we aren't just writing the code anymore, we are naming the price.